Welcome to Decoding the Digital Lab with CSols, the podcast that explores complexities and potential of laboratory informatics. I'm your host, Lisa Richard, and in today's episode, we're going to talk about zombie apps, those dormant apps that no one speaks of, that lurk in the shadows of the organization, yet cost a lot and can drain our resources. Joining me is David Hunt, the Senior Director of Channels and Alliances at ZONTAL, where they focus on bridging legacy systems with AI-ready platforms. Thanks for joining us today, David. Why don't you kick us off with your definition of zombie apps?
Oh, thank you for having me, Lisa. A zombie app is any app that is over 7 years old that has 25 or fewer users, very little adoption, and very importantly, has large security gaps.
So how is this different than system decommissioning? What's a zombie app versus just a system that isn't used as much anymore? Is there a difference?
Decommissioning is usually taking a set of applications that are similar, that may have overlapping functionality, and combining them into one or two applications.
Oh, okay. So like system rationalization.
Yes, zombie apps were traditionally called system rationalization. I like zombie apps. It's just a much cooler name.
Well, I think there's an aspect of them that's a little bit different, right? System rationalization and decommissioning, those systems may be active, whereas zombie apps, I think they're kind of those systems that no one really works with anymore or touches, or maybe isn't even familiar with anymore, right? That's kind of the distinction.
Yes, so a zombie app can be something that somebody purchased. They put it on auto renew. They left the company. It's not really used. For example, we have one client that has a time and attendance application that they bought in the 80s. There's two people that use this time and attendance in a facility in Minnesota. If you look at how much the maintenance is and the hardware costs, it's more than those two employees make a year. And if you want to have some good numbers to go by, your average zombie app costs about $80,000 to maintain, between the hardware costs, the maintenance costs, as well as the employee costs. We've learned that not just from our research, but Gartner's got a report out, and there's a new Forbes article. And we also know that SAP has an active zombie apps program currently.
So if they're kind of zombies and they sit out there, is the impact to an organization primarily cost, or are there other impacts to the organization that should concern them or that they should consider?
So if you look at the most recent Gartner survey, out of the top 5 things they want to do, application simplification was number 2. So if you've got apps that you're not using, that makes your architecture and your landscape much, much more convoluted and difficult to manage. So if the number 2 thing that CIOs want to do is simplify their landscape, getting rid of zombie apps is the easiest way to start.
If some of them are so old, though, and the technology is changing, can you really bring them forward? Like, what would the approach be for an organization? I mean, I would imagine some just kind of avoid the topic because they feel like the transformation effort of that, especially if the resources that know those systems are gone, would be daunting, right? And maybe even cost them more than if they just left them sitting in the corner. And so how would they consider that or bring them forward?
Especially older apps that would make you do revision after revision after revision. So if you're on 4 and they're currently on 12, and you have to do an upgrade to 5 to 6 to 7 to 8, and obviously if you've only got, say, 25 users or less, your organization doesn't need it. So we want to safely be able to turn them off.
Are there risks of keeping them, like security risks, data risks? Are there any risks
It's
they have?
ginormous. If you look at, especially some of the apps that we've run into have been written, say, in C++ in the 90s, and this is before HTML. The vulnerabilities are ginormous. Plus, we've also seen cases where people, the IT guy has a 486 computer in his basement, and this has been running for almost 25 years.
Mm.
If you want to get into a backdoor of a corporation, find an old C++ and get in through there, because now you're in the network.
Okay. So, I mean, safe to say, costing a lot, resource skill set may no longer be there, high security risk. So, why aren't people addressing them? What's preventing an organization from making that a high priority?
The same reason I didn't clean out my closet this week. When you think about mergers and acquisitions, because a application rationalization project usually happens when mergers and acquisitions occur. So this is what this new company is bringing to the table. Which ones should we keep? Which ones should both organizations use? Which ones should we get rid of? If that went, say, like every 3 to 5 years, because zombie apps don't happen over time, don't happen quickly. They happen over time. So if you set up between every 3 to 5 years to clean out the closet, to make your landscape more manageable, you just do it on schedule. You do a budget every year. You do a lot of things on a yearly basis. But I think if you did it every third year, and I know that CSols has the resources to come in and help find those.
We do. I was going to actually ask you a little bit about. So I mentioned at the beginning that you guys bridge, as a partner of ours, we've worked together on a few things, but you guys bridge the gap between these legacy systems and the other. Outside of focusing on your product, one thing that I think is a challenging question for folks is remove the zombie app, but do what with the data? Where would I put it? Do I put it in an existing system? Do I put it into like an Azure? Where do I put it and how do I decide? Like, can you talk a little bit about that for folks?
Yeah. So before you decide where to put it, we want to decide what to do with it. So what we want to do is we want to do two things. We want to create a vendor neutral twin, but most importantly, for all of the regulatory bodies, we're going to keep the original data. So we ingest the data. We'll keep two versions of everything. One is pristine, untouched, original.
Uh-huh.
Then we will transform another instance of this. So we'll have two of the same data. We'll transform it into a vendor neutral format. Then we can decide. You can keep it in ZONTAL if you want, but you could also put it into Snowflake. You could set into Azure. You could keep it in AWS. You could keep it in your SAP data lake. It doesn't matter where you want to put it. But what does matter is now you have access to it. So you can run AI. And so maybe we've got a LIMS from the 80s that we want to get rid of, but it's got hundreds of thousands of tests that we might want to access. Well, now you would have to find the application, you'd have to log in, you have a username, blah, 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 blah. Now that you've got this ingested into wherever we decide to put it, let's just say an AWS instance, for example, we now can put Spotfire over that. We now can put Power BI or anything you want. And also that historical data is AI ready for use because it's in a vendor neutral format.
I think that's an important point. And then I think the other important point that I would add to that, given the work that we've done, is that what you're doing is you're taking all these zombie systems and their data, but you're bringing it into a current consistent format with today's data. And what that does is allows you to not only leverage that, but it allows folks to just ask contextual questions of the data, say to solve a patent case, to solve an issue, say with a product complaint, but now they have access to that data in a consistent format. And there's probably a better way to say that, but I think that's one of the most valuable things of pulling these things forward as well.
Since our clients are generally more clever than us, you put on a very good point. Our clients came to us and said, one of our clients came to us and said, we have IP case that we have to defend against. And we pulled in several ELNs and we gave access to their legal team. And we know that they were able to do in 2 hours what it would have taken 20 paralegals a month to do. Now, this client, every single lawyer and paralegal within this organization has access to ZONTAL. And anytime they're defending any IP or going after somebody for infringing on their IP, they utilize ZONTAL and all the ELNs and the limbs in order to go to court.
That's a great use case. And what industry was that in? Was that in life
That
science?
was a very large pharma.
Okay, in pharma. I think that's interesting, and I think you touched on this before, so I apologize, but I've never really seen um, companies that don't have some sort of zombie app, and so addressing it, how would they make sure that they just don't land with a new set of zombie apps? Is there, and I think you talked about it with this kind of automated schedule that will occur, things like that.
I haven't seen anything. You got to do it like every 3 years.
Okay. So
It's
it's kind of like your inventory reconciliation. You just got to do this. It's got to become part of your plan.
unless CSols has a product that I don't know about that can go out and come back with, these older apps and their usage and run a report. If I had less than 5 logins in the last 30 days, flag this application. I don't know of it. We would love to find somebody that does that. And I hope we
Yeah, I
can.
know that we have done that for some clients. I don't know if we've used tools and put them in or if we've built them, but it's an interesting thing that an organization, if you put the effort on this and you see the return on investment in this effort, that you'd want to continue it, right? And so having an easy way to do that would seem to make sense for sure.
So the return on investment is pretty easy because we know, and Gartner and some other things, and anecdotally, we know every zombie app costs about $80,000. So if you've got 10 of them, that's $800,000. There's another report I saw that said that about 20% of a budget is tied up with not used, antiquated, underutilized. So if just for simple, say our budget's $1 million and I freed up $200,000, 20% of that budget, that's like now having $1.2 million in your budget. So the ROI on this is easy because it's not terribly expensive to work with CSols and figure out what the zombie apps are. The ZONTAL instance is nowhere near as much as your zombie apps. You're going to save at least 50% on this project. So the ROI is vast, and it's simple. Just Excel spreadsheet. I spent 800K. This will only cost us 400K. Let's do it.
Let's switch gears for a second and focus on why kind of folks don't address it, right? If we look at the regulated industry and this notion of data must survive, and we look at the notion of compliance and the perception that I have to be able to reproduce it in its native approach, that sort of adds a factor when we circle back to why people are doing it. It adds a factor of why it's too daunting and we don't want to add to the risk of the regulations. And so, what specific kind of data archiving and validation requirements come into play that should be considered when you're going from a zombie app to an AI ready platform?
As long as you ingest the original and
Okay.
maintain the original, it doesn't matter where you're holding it. If you hold it in the native app or if you hold it in our example of an AWS data lake, the regulators will actually have an easier time auditing you if they're looking for data in a single place and it's in a vendor neutral format. Because if the regulators really wanted to get down and dirty, rather than just have a report, they might want to go through each and every application. So you can comply with them in a couple of minutes as opposed to having them there for days, weeks, or months.
Well, and I suppose the integrity information of the source system is pulled forward with the records.
Correct.
Okay.
The original data is kept pristine.
And so if it's pristine and it's contextualized, then that facilitates that audit response.
Absolutely.
Okay. And that's the same whether it's instrument data versus a data source such as an ELN. It's really the same approach to that transformation and that ability to retrieve that information.
As well as the absolute record of the chain of custody.
Ah. So let's talk a little bit about that. When that data gets moved over, are there audit trails in these types of tools once
Yes.
in there that
Yes.
give that same
And then
integrity?
the original is going to have that. And then when we change and apply the metadata, that's also going to have an audit trail of anything that was done to the data after it. So if I pulled the original and then created a digital twin, it will know that Lisa Richard did that. And then David Hunt looked at it. And then, Bill Mulligan created a report on Power BI with it. We will now know everything that was ever done with that data.
Okay, so it sounds like the data integrity and the regulation aspect is covered with these sorts of tools. If I'm an organization who's looking to do this, and I've not really thought about zombie apps, I've sort of thought of system reconciliation. Like I have 3 libs, let's just have one. And now I'm sort of looking in the shadow at these. Like, what are the steps that I would take? What are the groups that would look at it? Is this purely an IT project? Is this we need the laboratories to participate in the example that you gave for life sciences, for example? Like, who tackles zombie apps and where do they start?
Simplistically, I would start with a survey. And if I sent it to every division manager or every lab manager and said, how many apps do you currently have? How many are you currently paying maintenance? I would start there and then aggregate a report, because the tribal knowledge is going to know. And like I said, some of these apps are just sitting on a 486 in the IT guy's basement.
Mm-hmm.
But these divisional managers should know. So this is going to have to
Really
be a
kind of a
business.
current use assessment. And I know some of our clients, they have built programs that go out and look. But again, those are the ones that are known to the
Right.
organization. They're on the network. And so I suppose coupled with a survey could be, hey, here's our base start point. And here's what we understand the usage to be, confirm it, and now add those ones we're unaware of.
One person that I was talking to said that they thought that we might be able to achieve this through Windows file search. And I wasn't quite sure how it would work, but I think it's something that might want to be explored. Because if it's used at all, it's going to show up somewhere on the network.
Yeah, some of our clients have dashboards that show use and the way that they use it in addition to this sort of effort is they use it to monitor adoption rates, right? So if they're a system that they deployed and it's getting no traction from a use perspective, they know they need to jump on that quickly. Otherwise, they could lose that system altogether in terms of user adoption. And so there are folks doing it. I'm just not sure technically how. So it's worth looking into for folks who are exploring this is how do we do that assessment? It looks like we're close to timeout. So I sort of want to end with what do you want to leave the listener with? What's the one piece of advice or the one consideration they need to leave here thinking about with regards to zombie apps?
Zombie apps make your life difficult and costly. And if we address them, say, every 3 to 5 years, the problem will never repeat itself. And I really think that the zombie app project from start to finish is less than 6 months. It's not
Oh,
a
I forgot
major
to ask
effort.
you about that. How long are these types of projects?
I think if we do a week or two engagement
Hmm.
with finding out what's there,
Hmm.
get the survey done, then set up an instance and start ingesting and transforming.
Hmm. Isn't that
I
the hardest part? I'm gonna take another minute of people's time. Isn't that the hardest part, though, is determining, because it is a zombie app, is how to transform it and what to transform it into? Or what, sort of steps around that would facilitate that?
Well, we like to say if we can see it on the network, we can get to it. If we
Mhm.
can get to it, we can ingest it. If we can ingest it, we can transform it.
Okay. Because
So
you're
if we
using
know,
standard data models that can be
yes,
okay.
and we'll probably use, especially in life sciences, the allotrope simple model,
Mhm.
which is a vendor neutral format anybody can get access to.
Mhm.
Um, this is definitely a 6 months or less project.
Okay. I think that's a good note to end on. We're out of time for today. episode of Decoding the Digital Lab with CSols. Join us next time and hit the follow button if you're enjoying the content. We also have a newsletter that highlights current events on a weekly basis, which is free to sign up for. You can find the link on the episode in Spotify or on YouTube. And thank you very much, David, for joining us. Thank you to the listeners for joining us as well. And have a great day.